Imagine waking up one morning to find the sun, the very source of life, barely visible through a thick, eerie fog. The world around you is bathed in a twilight that never seems to end, as if the heavens themselves have turned against humanity. Now, this isn't the plot of a dystopian novel. This is what many historians and scientists consider the worst year to be alive, 536 AD, a year where the sun dimmed, the earth grew cold, and society teetered on the brink of collapse. I'm Dwayne, and welcome to Eden's a Mystery, where we dive into history, mystery, and all things strange. If that's your thing, come and join our community by subscribing and hitting the notification bell. And don't forget, Eden's a Mystery is also a podcast currently on Spotify and Amazon Music. Now, let's get back to the mystery. It all began with an ominous, unnatural fog that spread across Europe, the Middle East, and parts of Asia. For 18 months, this fog obscured the sun, casting a darkness over the world. The sun, once bright and warm, now resembled the pale light of the moon, barely illuminating the cold, barren land. Roman historian Procopius documented this eerie phenomena, writing that
the sun gave forth its light without brightness, like the moon.
The world had entered a long, cold twilight, and no one knew if the sun would ever return. For centuries, the cause of this mysterious darkness was a puzzle. It wasn't until modern scientists examined ice core samples from Greenland and Antarctica that the pieces began falling into place. A massive volcanic eruption, likely in Iceland or possibly multiple eruptions around the globe, had spewed vast amounts of ash and sulfur into the atmosphere. This volcanic material spread across the planet, blocking sunlight and triggering a volcanic winter. The global average temperature is estimated to have dropped by 2 to 3 degrees Celsius, 3.6 to 5.4 degrees Fahrenheit. While this might not seem like much, it was enough to cause major disruptions in climate patterns, agriculture, and ecosystems. The most severe period of cooling lasted about 18 months following the initial volcanic eruptions. During this time, the sun was obscured by the volcanic ash and sulfur in the atmosphere, leading to extremely cold conditions and crop failures across much of the northern hemisphere. The cooling effects lingered for several years. The 540s in particular are noted as a decade of persistently low temperatures. Some sources suggest that the overall impact of the cooling that began in the spring of 536 lasted in Western Europe until about 660, and it lasted until about 680 in Central Asia, with subsequent years also being colder than the pre-eruption average. The prolonged chill and the subsequent impact on agriculture and societies would set the stage for one of the most challenging periods in recorded history. As the world grew colder, crops failed across Europe, Asia, and the Americas. The sudden and severe climate change caused widespread famine. In some regions, entire communities were wiped out, unable to sustain themselves in the freezing conditions. Livestock perished, and food supplies dwindled. The once thriving Byzantine Empire, already under pressure from external threats, found itself grappling with mass starvation and economic collapse. But even in these desperate times, people found ways to survive. Some communities turned to new food sources. Wild plants, roots, and even tree bark became part of their diet. Others relied on communal efforts, sharing what little they had and banding together to withstand the harsh conditions. The human spirit, though battered, was far from broken. As if the darkness and famine weren't enough, the year 536 was soon followed by another disaster, the Plague of Justinian. Starting in 541 AD, this early outbreak of bubonic plague swept through the Byzantine Empire, particularly devastating the capital, Constantinople. The plague claimed the lives of millions, further weakening an already crumbling society. The combination of environmental catastrophe and disease created a perfect storm of suffering, driving civilization to its knees. The catastrophic events of 536 AD and the following years were the final nails in the coffin for the Roman Empire, particularly the Western Roman Empire, which had already been in decline. By this time, Rome was a shadow of its former glory, fragmented and weakened by internal strife, economic troubles, and relentless invasions by barbarian tribes. The cooling climate, failed harvests, and the plague further exacerbated these issues, accelerating the empire's collapse. The once mighty Roman infrastructure, roads, aqueducts, and cities began to crumble as the population dwindled and resources became scarce. The intellectual and cultural achievements of the Roman world were threatened with extinction as the loss of centralized power led to chaos and the disintegration of established social orders. This period marked the beginning of what some call the Dark Ages, a time when much of Europe was plunged into economic and cultural stagnation. The loss of Roman authority created a power vacuum that was filled by various barbarian kingdoms, each struggling to establish control in a fractured and unstable world. Literacy rates plummeted, trade routes collapsed, and the once thriving urban centers of the Roman Empire fell into ruin. However, even in this dark period, there were glimmers of hope. Monastic communities, particularly in Ireland and other remote regions, preserved knowledge by copying ancient texts and maintaining libraries. These islands of light would later play a crucial role in the preservation and eventual revival of European culture and knowledge. Despite the overwhelming odds, not everyone succumbed to the horrors of 536 AD. Communities that adapted to the new reality had a better chance of survival. Those who could store food, trade for essential goods, or move to more hospitable regions managed to cling to life. In some cases, old traditions and practices were revived or adapted to the changing world. Religious rituals, community gatherings, and mutual support systems became essential for mental and spiritual survival, helping people find meaning and hope in a seemingly hopeless world. One particularly fascinating example of survival is found in the rise of these monastic communities. These isolated groups, often living in remote, self-sustaining monasteries, were somewhat insulated from the chaos. They grew their own food, practiced strict discipline, and focused on spiritual life, which helped them weather the storm. These communities not only survived, but became centers of knowledge and learning, preserving crucial information and cultural practices through one of the darkest periods in history. As we've seen, the events of 536 pushed the ancient world to its breaking point. But what if something similar were to happen today? What would it mean for our modern civilization with all its technological advancements and interconnected systems? In a world where our lives depend on global supply chains, digital communication, and just-in-time delivery of goods, a sudden and prolonged period of darkness could be catastrophic. Imagine waking up to a sky perpetually shrouded in thick clouds, with the sun a mere ghostly presence behind them. The temperatures drop, and before long, global agriculture begins to fail. With modern agriculture so reliant on consistent weather patterns, a global climate anomaly could trigger widespread crop failures. The resulting food shortages would lead to skyrocketing prices, social unrest, and potentially even wars over resources. The complex networks that deliver food to every corner of the world would be strained to their limits, and many regions could face famine, much like the people of 536 AD. The economic impact would be severe. Stock markets would likely crash as uncertainty grips the globe, and countries would face recessions or even depressions. Trade would slow. Industries reliant on stable weather conditions, such as agriculture and tourism, would be decimated and unemployment would soar. Our dependence on technology, could also become a double-edged sword. Satellites, which rely on solar power, could be affected by the lack of sunlight, disrupting global communications and GPS systems. The power grid, already under stress from the colder climate, might struggle to meet the increased demand for heating, leading to rolling blackouts or complete grid failures in some areas. A lack of sunlight could also lead to widespread health issues, from vitamin D deficiencies to mental health crisis as people struggle with the extended darkness. The colder temperatures could lead to the spread of diseases, similar to how the plague of Justinian followed the volcanic winter of 536. Our modern healthcare systems, while advanced, could be overwhelmed by the sheer scale of the crisis. Finally, the social fabric of our world could be stretched to the breaking point. As resources become scarce, we might see a rise in nationalism, xenophobia, and conflict between nations. The internet and social media, instead of uniting us, could amplify fear, misinformation, and panic, leading to civil unrest on an unprecedented scale. But just as the people of 536 AD found ways to survive, so too might we. The potential for human resilience and ingenuity is vast. We might see communities banding together, new technologies emerging to adapt to the changed environment, and global cooperation to address the crisis. Just as in the past, those who can adapt quickly and work together would stand the best chance of surviving such a catastrophe. The story of 536 AD is not just a tale of darkness and despair. It's a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. Despite the overwhelming challenges, our ancestors found ways to survive, adapt, and rebuild. They weathered the storm, literally and figuratively, and laid the foundations for future generations. In reflecting on this, we are reminded that even in the darkest of times, there is hope. The ingenuity, courage, and perseverance that allowed people to survive one of the worst years in history are qualities that continue to define us today. While the world has changed in countless ways, the fundamental human traits that helped our ancestors endure still resonate. As we ponder the events of 536, we're left with a haunting question. How would we fare if faced with a similar catastrophe today? Yes, the challenges might be different, but the essence of survival, community, adaptability, and resilience remains the same. In remembering the past, we gain insights into the present, and perhaps a glimpse into the future. Thank you for joining me on this journey through one of history's darkest hours. If you've enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, share, and until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and never stop seeking the truth.
Whispering winds tell tales unknown, secrets of the past have flown through the trees and ancient stones, where the mystery calls us home. Footsteps lost in time's embrace, hidden shadows leave no trace, and the depths of space's grace we uncover dreams to chase. Edens of mystery, where stories come alive, unveiling history, where wonders all thrive. From the earth to sky so wide, voyage through where truths reside, in the dark or in the light, we seek answers through the night. Science whispers in its code, nature's wonders to behold. In the threads of stories told, every secret, every fold.